Okay. If you're looking for Torah and tea, this is that's my wife. So if you're looking for Torah and tea, you have to go to a different Zoom number, as my wife and I are both having the same class, same time. I mean, same time. This is the weekly the class on the portion of the week, and it's a JLI class, Jewish Learning Institute class, and I hope everybody has the book, so you can follow with in the book. And I said last week, you can still get this book, Torah Studies, and if you need the book, you can. We have it at the Chabad House, so you can follow with as we continue in the portions of the week. And we go into the portion of Vayetzei. It's in your book on page 106. The readings that we're going to do is the beginning of the portion. It's that's the first text in your book, which is Genesis 28, verse number 10. So we continue with the journey and the story of Jacob, the story of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. You know, our sages tell us that we see that the Torah gives away a lot of place for the stories of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. And why would the Torah give up so much space when it doesn't give up so much space for the laws of the Torah? Why would the Torah give so much space for the stories of the patriarchs? And the Gemara answers, because their life is a lesson teaching every one of us. And we can learn a lot from the way they live their lives. So the way we should live our lives. The most important thing, and there are many things we can learn in life, is the concept of conflict. And we find a lot of conflict in the Torah, especially in the book of Genesis. We find a lot of conflict. From the first day of creation, we find conflict between the brothers, Cain and Abel, and Cain kills Abel. And then you find the conflict between Abraham and others. Abraham was the outsider. He's a conflict with others. We find Isaac conflict with Esau. Conflict with Yishmael, with his stepbrother. We find in these week's portions the conflict of Esau and Jacob. We go to the Jacob's children, we find the conflict. There's always a conflict, seemingly. And how to resolve conflict. It's a very important thing. I believe the Torah wants to tell us in general, how do we resolve conflict? Conflict of brothers. And the Gemara, actually it says that till Moses, we don't find that brothers can live with each other too happily. We find by Moses and Aaron that God gives a challenge. He chooses the younger brother over the older brother. And there we seemingly find no conflict. They actually live together in harmony and they work out their issues. But seemingly until then, we have conflict, resolution conflict. How would you get involved? And how would the Torah involve itself in the ways of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in the way they address conflict? Now, the truth is, if you learn Chassidus, you learn Kabbalah, and it's based on the teachings of the Torah, the way Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were. So Abraham was chesed, Abraham was kindness. And in essence, the way he addressed conflict was through kindness. He addressed it through the concept of kindness. He smothered his enemy with kindness. And that was his agenda. He didn't go out to fight with anybody. He actually had an open house. He invited everybody into his home. And he basically, that was the way he responded to the world and the way he ultimately influenced the world. He influenced the world through the concept of chesed. Yitzchak, Isaac, was gevura. He was to the concept of strength, power, through involving himself with the Esav, so to say, and becoming, so to say, trying to involve himself with the concept of Esav, severity and strength, and overcoming things through the aspect of digging, going within the concept. And Chassidut gives many different approaches. Yaakov Avinu, which we're going to discuss today, seemingly has a different way to the way he thinks to resolve conflict. The truth is, as we'll come to the lessons of the class, you'll see maybe we need a balance of all. Maybe we need a mixture of all things to be able to solve inner conflict, outer conflict. How do we bring about this aspect in our lives? And it's a beautiful, this is a sikh of the Rebbe, this is the teaching of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which the Rebbe spoke about, or gave and wrote, and it's written, this sikh, this teaching of the Rebbe, and I hope that you will enjoy it. So let's start. The class starts off on page number 106 in your book, and it starts off with the first verse of the Torah in this week's portion. Vayetzei Yaakov mi Beersheva, and Jacob went out of Beersheva. He left right after he was already in his 60s. He just had a big fight with his brother. He took away the blessings from him, and his brother, wanted to, had in mind to kill him, and his mother wanted him to leave, and he leaves. Vayetzei Yaakov Beersheva, he packs his bags. He leaves Beersheva v'yelech Harana. The sages, even Rashi, is bothered with the Beersheva. Why does he need to tell us Beersheva? Why do we need to say that he went out of Beersheva? Vayetzei Yaakov v'yelech Harana. Yaakov went out and he went to Haran. Why? And he went to Haran. Why does the Torah need to keep on telling us where he went from? Or what is that so important in the story? And that bothered it. So really, what is Beersheva? What is Beersheva? Where is Beersheva? Is a city in Israel, but where do we find in the past Beersheva? So the Rebbe brings down a medrash. It's a very interesting medrash, which goes away from the simple meaning of the verse, and it goes really into a whole history and a lesson of Beersheva. What is Beersheva? So in text number 2, if you have the book, page 107, in the book, we go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 21. Over there is the first time we find Beersheva, this place, Beersheva, which really is Beersheva has two meanings: a well of 7, or Beersheva is called Beersheva because it's a well of vow. They made a vow. Who made a vow? They made a pact. They made a vow between two people, made a pact between one another. And the first time we find this is in the book of Genesis, chapter 21, verse 25 to 32. And it's in front of you in your page number 107. And Abraham contended with Avimelech about the well of water that the servants of Avimelech had forcibly seized. So Abraham was angry with Avimelech that his servants, Abraham dug wells as he traveled through the land of Israel, and he came to this place and he dug a well. And Avimelech said, and somebody took away the well, stuffed the well. So Avimelech did not know who did this thing. Neither did you tell me, nor did I hear of it until today. So I don't know what you're talking about. So therefore, Abraham wanted to make sure that Avimelech would, for now and forever, protect the wells that he dug. So Abraham took flock and cattle and gave them to Avimelech, and they both formed a covenant. They made a covenant. The way they made a covenant, they traded with each other cattle, and they made this covenant. Continuing the verse, therefore he named the place Be'er Sheva, for there they both swore, they made a covenant in the place Be'er Sheva, and they formed a covenant at Be'er Sheva, in Be'er Sheva, and Avimelech and Fichol, his general, arose, and they returned to the land of Philistine. So that was the first time that we have the naming of Be'er Sheva. We have the naming of Be'er Sheva. Avram makes a pact with Avimelech, and that's in Genesis 21 from 25 to 32. On 108, on page 108, text number 3, you have the second time Be'er Sheva, and that's years later. Abraham has passed away, and now we're dealing with Isaac. Isaac basically is going to redig all the wells, the Torah says, what is Abraham dug. He's busy digging the wells of his father. And you have it on text number 3. And Isaac dug the wells of water, which they had dug in the days of Avram, of father Abraham. And the Philistines have stopped them up after Avram's death, and he gave them names, the names that his father's given them. And Isaac's servants dug the valley, and they found on there a well of living water. And the shepherds of Grove quarreled with Isaac's shepherds, and saying, the water is ours. So he named the well Esek. They had a contender with him. And here again we have. And he went up from there to Be'er Sheva. Now Avimelech comes back. Suddenly Avimelech, the same king with Avram, arrives. And Avimelech went up to him from Gerar, and a group of his company, and Fichol his general. So Avimelech comes again. He comes back again. And the same general. And he says to them, we have seen that God has been with you. So we said, let us now be an oath between us. We made an oath between Abraham, your father. Let's make another pact between ourselves and you, and let us form a covenant with us. And here again, the Torah says, and he named it Shiva, Be'er Sheva. Therefore, the city is named Be'er Sheva until this very day. And you can go, it's in the Negev, beautiful city, Be'er Sheva. Actually, if you go to Israel, go to Be'er Sheva, they officially have a well there from the time of Abraham. They call it the Well of Abraham. Right now, it's a tourist attraction. Can't promise you it's the actual well, but whatever, you can go there and visit the well. So we have twice with the Torah introduced us to this Be'er Sheva. Now we come to our portion, where again it mentions Be'er Sheva. It again mentions Vayetzei Yaakov Be'er Sheva. So we have the third time where the Torah tells us the Be'er Sheva to the Negev, and Jacob left Be'er Sheva. So what was it? Why is the Torah telling us this? Why does the Torah keep on telling us? It's connecting Be'er Sheva to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. They're connecting all of these three patriarchs to the story of the well, of this place, Be'er Sheva. So we find an interesting medrash. Text number 4. The medrash. The medrash says as follows. Now, anybody on Zoom can ask a question. If you want to ask, unmute yourself and ask a question. Don't be shy. And also, to the others that I can't see their faces, don't be shy. Unless you're sitting in pajamas. Show your faces. And even if you're sitting in pajamas, all I can see is your faces. Show your faces. Don't be shy if you can. Rabbi Yudin said, the verse is to be read. And Jacob fled from the wells of oaths. Vayetzei Yaakov Be'er Sheva. Jacob ran away from this oath. He wanted to run away from Avimelech. he knew Avimelech is going to come and make another pact. He came to Abraham, he came to Isaac, and he's going to come to Jacob. Therefore, he packed his bags and he ran. Namely, Jacob said to himself, I don't want Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, to approach me and say, swear to me, you're your father and grandfather, let's make a pact. I don't want any pacts with Avimelech. And therefore, I'm packing my bags and leaving. I'm leaving the country. I don't want any pacts with Avimelech. I don't want to make any deals with him. I don't want to make any commitments with him. I'm out of here.
Rabbi,
very interesting medrash. Yes.
Excuse me. Was it the same Avimelech for all three?
Yeah, it's a good question. I tried to look that up. Some say it was. He was a very young. He started off as a very young king. Some say it's like the Pharaoh. That was the name that was given. The Pharaoh of Egypt was always called Pharaoh. And Avimelech was also that. It was called, that was the name of the king. It was called Avimelech. But whatever. The Torah doesn't tell us. What's interesting is actually both by Yitzchak, it says Ufichol Sar Tzvoi. So it seems like it was the same Avimelech, because both of them had the same general in the army. So it seems like it was the same Avimelech. And as I said, it's brought down, some places brought down that he was very young. Therefore, he lived through Abraham and Isaac, and he was still there in Jacob's times. Okay, whatever. The interesting medrash says that Jacob didn't want to make a pact with Avimelech, and the only way of getting around from making this pact was for him to leave, and that's what he did. He left.
Rabbi, excuse me. If it was the same Avimelech, why is he making pacts with 3 times? Because the 3 different.
Well, because it was Abraham. It was then the leader of the Jew of the Ivrim. They were powerful people. They were wealthy people, powerful people, and they traveled in a very big group. Abraham traveled very big. He was very powerful. Isaac was very powerful, very successful, and so was Jacob. Very powerful and very successful.
That when he made the first pact with Abraham, was supposed to be for eternity. No, didn't it say that from Abraham?
Well, he was worried. Avimelech was worried that Isaac would break the pact. So Avimelech came and wanted to institute the pact. Most probably when Jacob came, and Avimelech wanted to reinstitute the pact again, because I believe Avimelech most probably knew that their take over the land of Israel, it was promised to them. I'm sure that Abraham told everybody the promise that God said that his children are going to own this place. Everybody wanted to make a pact with him that he shouldn't go out to war with them. Whatever. That's a separate issue. The question is, the real problem is, why didn't Jacob want to make the pact? What was so terrible? His father made a pact with Avimelech. And Yitzchak made it, and Avram made a pact with Avimelech. So what was wrong? What was so terrible of making a pact with Avimelech? What would be so terrible? So really, the question that Rebbe asked, is what is the lesson? Really, what's the lesson? Here you have Avimelech, the Philistines. We know that later on, when Abraham, when the Jews went out of Mitzrayim, the Eibishter didn't want the Jews to go through Philistine, through the Plishtim. Avimelech was the Melech Plishtim. When the Jews went out of Mitzrayim, we know later on, it says that God didn't want them to go through the Philistines. So the Philistines was a rough nation. It was known as a rough nation, and they lived in. We know where they lived. They lived in Gaza, as Gaza today. And they always made the Jewish people problems until David HaMelech came and did away with them. But they were a rough group, and Abraham had struggles with them. Therefore, he made a pact with them. Isaac continued that pact. He didn't want to have any struggles with them. And came Yaakov and said, "You know what? I'm not making a pact with these guys. I'm leaving, and I'm going to Haran." He ultimately came back. Isaac came back, but it was 22 years later. When Isaac
Rabbi Bucket, but he was leaving because he was going to Haran because
no,
he was.
that's the medrash. So the medrash says not that way. The medrash says that's the medrash. I'm telling you, we're going away from the normal thinking of the pasuk. The medrash switches a little bit. In text number 4, the medrash says there's another reason why he left. Because the truth is, Isaac didn't leave right away. Isaac didn't leave right away. His father sent him away. Did Isaac leave right away? No. If you know the story, he stayed another 14 years in Israel. He went to yeshiva.
You mean Yaakov? Yaakov.
I mean Jacob, right? Jacob didn't leave right away. He didn't pack his bags and leave. He took his time. It took him 14 years to leave. The pasuk over here, in essence, wants to emphasize why he left. The Medrash says he left because he didn't want to deal with Avimelech. He didn't want to deal with Avimelech. Okay, the Rebbe is going on this Medrash. We're going away from the normal setup of the Torah. The Medrash gives us a secret, so to say, a behind situation that maybe you never learned this Medrash. The truth is, I knew this Medrash. I never knew the name of the person who said the Medrash, and that's why I learned today. I'm Rabbi Yudin. I never knew that. But I knew this Medrash. I heard this Medrash, but this is the first time I actually read the Medrash. So it was nice to read this Medrash. The Rebbe goes on this Medrash, and the Rebbe says there's a lesson that the Medrash tells us this. There's selfless to a lesson to us. Why was Isaac the one who constantly was running away from things? I mean, Jacob. Why was Jacob the guy who was always running away from things? We see this throughout his life. He's always running away. He's not dealing with the situation. Seemingly, he's dealing with the situation in a different kind of way. Jacob comes and deals with situations in a whole different way, and will understand what was the agenda of Jacob. What was his agenda? He had a whole different agenda. And in Kabbalah, it is that Avram was chesed, as I told you, was kindness. Yitzchak was gevura, was severity, strength. And Yaakov was tiferes, was beauty. Rachamim, mercy. He had a whole different agenda. And actually, our sages tell us that Yaakov embodied both Abraham and Isaac, and he elevated them. Yaakov, the beauty of Yaakov was that he had both of his father and his grandfather within him, and therefore, in the Gemara, he's called Bechir Sheba Avos. He's been called the choicest of the patriarchs. So really, we need to learn from Yaakov in a way, in this concept. Avimelech, Melech Plishtim. Avimelech, the king of Plishtim, he's the challenger. He's symbolic of the challenge in life. He's challenged Abraham, he challenged Isaac, and he's going to challenge Jacob. And there's two ways of overcoming a challenge. There are three ways. There's Isaac and Jacob. There's Abraham and Isaac, and there's Jacob. Abraham and Isaac is two ways of overcoming a challenge. And there is Jacob. How does Jacob overcome his challenge? So there's two ways. There's two ways in the Torah. One way is through suppression. Let's say you're in a bad mood. You're basically had a bad day. Terrible day. But now you're invited to a party. You're invited to a wedding. I don't know. You're invited to bar mitzvah. Right? You come into the bar mitzvah. You come into the wedding. Everybody's happy. Everybody's dancing. The chas and kala. Everybody's happy. What do? You're not in a good mood, but you're not in a happy mood. You're angry. You're frustrated. What do? You suppress it. That's it. You suppress it. You get into the mood. Everybody's happy. You suppress it. You dance it. You sing it. You fake it. You basically fake it. What's wrong with that? You can be happy, right? What happens when you get back with your wife back to the car? You become back angry again. You remind yourself why you were angry. Why were you angry before you got to the wedding? That has not gone away. So you suppressed it. You suppressed it. Suppression is a great thing, and sometimes we need to do that. Fake it till you make it. But usually, suppression is when you overpower something. That was Abraham. Abraham overpowered every situation with chesed, with kindness. He took over the situation. Abraham was a powerful individual who basically he was a magnet of a human being, and he basically overpowered everything that came in conflict with him. With chesed, with the aspect of unbridled kindness. Unless there was one time where he went and fought for war when there was a situation and he went out to war with the four kings. But in general, that was the approach of Abraham. It was a constant level of kindness. Yitzchak was Gevura, was also that concept, the same thing, but in a different way, in strength. In strength. He was a strong individual. Mesiras nefesh, in his blood was the concept of self-sacrifice, and he did everything in the digging of his wells, and he just continued his father in the aspect of people realize this is a special individual who is ready to give his life up to God, and he's a powerful man, and therefore we're gonna subdue ourselves to him. When we are introduced to Yaakov Avinu, he's called the Ishtam. He's called a man that sat in the tents. He's called a Ishtam, a simple man, a naive man, a guy who seemingly has no talents. His brother Esav is the talent guy. He's the guy out there. He's a trapper. He's a tzayid. He's a hunter. Famous guy fighting with Nimrod. He's challenging the world. And the brother for 60 years is sitting and learning. And Yaakov Avinu tries to do things in a whole different way. His avodah is rachamim. His service is mercy. He tries to work with everything. He tries to work with the issue. He tries to change the issue. And if he can't change it, he walks away. He doesn't try to overpower the issue. He doesn't try to force himself upon anybody. He tries to manipulate the situation. And to the best of his ability, he tries to ultimately transform it. That's his avodah. That's the avodah of Yaakov. Rachamim, the aspect of mercy. When you see a person that's in need, there's two ways of handling it. Giving him money, chesed. That's Avraham Avinu. Chesed, give him kindness. Shower him with food, shower him with money. Yaakov Avinu says, no, rachamim. Showering him with money is not going to change that person. You're giving him something maybe they can't even handle. So he'll abuse it. He'll just eat the food, and what is going to be tomorrow? Yaakov Avinu says, no, I'm going to try to uplift this person. I'm going to try to teach him a job. I'm going to try to help him change his life. And that's how Yaakov lives his life. In essence, Chassidus says there are many ways of dealing with a challenge in life, and our own challenges in life. There are different ways of dealing with it. Pushing under the cover, overpowering it, or changing it. How are how will you deal with these challenges in life? So here the Alter Rebbe gives us an analogy in the concept of our day-to-day life and how to deal with issues. The patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, instituted an unbelievable thing for us to do every day. The patriarchs instituted us for something to deal with and to handle the day-to-day life. They instituted 3 prayers. Abraham instituted the morning prayer. Yitzhak instituted the mincha prayer, the afternoon prayer, and Yaakov instituted the evening prayer. The Gemara, the Talmud tells us. So in essence, prayer, if we want to be able to deal with our stress and our challenges, the greatest way to overcome it is through prayer. But we have 3 prayers: Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, morning, afternoon, and evening. And if you'll understand the journey of prayer, you'll understand these 3 concepts of these 3 patriarchs. And why did Abraham do Shachris, morning prayer, right when you wake up in the morning to pray to God? Yitzhak Avinu said, no, I want you to pray to God in the middle of the day. Like if today, for example, in the winter time, like in New York or certain places, mincha you have to do by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, even earlier. You have to do it before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And Ma'ariv is at night. Evening prayers at night is Yaakov Avinu, Jacob instituted evening prayer. But why is prayer so important? Look at text number 5. Those who have the book, it's on page 110. Those who don't have the book, listen to the words of the Alter Rebbe. Reciting Shema and other parts of prayer is a spiritual opportune time for all. It is then that one can affix their mind on the greatness of God and arouse their heart with the fierce flames of love, motivating himself to cleave to God and fulfilling his mitzvahs and the studying of Torah out of love. Prayer is about love. We're not praying to God because we have to pray to God. We're praying to God because the Torah says, because we want to serve God with our heart. So if we can awaken up love, that's why actually prayer is love and fear, which is Abraham and Isaac. Love and fear, or love and respect. So at that point, the evil vested in the left chamber in their heart is suppressed by the goodness that has spread from the right chamber of his heart, which is influenced by the mind, which in turn bond up with the greatness of God. That's, the Alter Rebbe says, that is, in Tanya, he writes this, that is the beauty of prayer. If you want to know what prayer is all about, is about the expression of your heart. It gives you the capability to separate yourself from the world. That's why a man wears a tallis, puts a tallis around him, surrounds himself with the synagogue or in his home or wherever you're going to pray. Separate yourself from the world. Open your heart to something that's bigger and better. Become more of a spiritual entity. That's the beauty of prayer. We say it in the Shema, V'ahavta Hashem, like V'ahavta Hashem, I will love God b'chol levavcha, with all my heart. And that's where you know you have to pray, because the prayer is the constant reflection of my love, my heart to God. So that is the beauty of prayer. But you know what the problem with prayer is? The problem is that everybody's looking at the watch when they come to prayer. They're waiting until it comes to an end or whatever. They're in a rush to finish their prayer, because prayer comes to an end. You don't pray a whole day. And the second you leave prayer, most of us forget that we even prayed. So it's an emotional feeling, and it's supposed to be an emotional feeling. And therefore we sing in our prayers and we create some harmony in prayer. But what happens, as it says in text number 6, the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, after prayer, what happens? The evil impulse can easily come back. And that's what happens. The evil impulse, we go out to work. The evil impulse comes back, mixing with goodness to challenge the person as they walk through the darkness of this world. And that's the problem. If we would be able to pray a whole day, it would be unbelievable. But we can't. And we leave our prayers. And the second we leave our prayers, we lose that emotional feeling. But the Alter Rebbe writes in text number 7, the impact of the spiritual heights reached during prayer remain lingering in his mind, coupled with the innate love and fear of God latent in his heart, they can effectively empower and control him. Therefore, if we pray, so therefore, Avraham Avinu said, Daven Shachris, get up in the morning. You want to have a good day? You want to have a good day? Because everybody wakes up in the morning and wants to take over the world. So everybody wakes up in the morning excited it's going to be a good day. You want to make it a real good day? The first thing is daven, pray. Open up a siddur. You're in a good mood. You feel like it's going to be a day of love and it's going to be a day of happiness. Daven, pray to God. You're going to feel good. It's going to create a warmth within you. It's going to create excitement within you. It's going to be unbelievable. Hopefully, it's going to get you through the day because you started your day in a good mood and you connected it to prayer. You awoke in your heart with love of God. It's going to continue through the day. So something's going to happen. Hopefully, you're davening and your good mood will stay through the day. It doesn't always happen that way. And therefore, as the day goes through and you're struggling, so Yitzchak said, listen, go daven again, mincha. Let's make a prayer. Let's do a prayer in the middle of the day. Let's make a prayer. So you're going through a hard day. You're going to have some gevura. You're going to have some strength. You're going to stop your day. You're going to daven. You're going to pray. Again, connect to God. And you'll realize that all the brachas, all the blessings of the day, everything that you do during the day is all a blessing from God anyway. So therefore, don't worry. It's a bad day. It's all going to be good. That's why Yitzchak said, let's daven in the day. Let's stop our day. In the middle of the day, let's pray. So Abraham is chesed. Right away in the morning, you're good. You're chesed. You're good. You're woke. It's a new day. Abraham says, connected to a prayer. Isaac says, in the middle of the day, stop your day. I know it's a rough day. Let's pray. That's Abraham and Isaac. Comes Yaakov Avinu, who's a second approach, and that's why he instituted the prayer of the night. It's the night. It's the night. And how do we transform the night and we make it into a day? How do we take the choshech, the night, and we make it light? That is by transforming some of the darkness into light. And that's the second whole concept of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu says, you have to, no, I'm not here into, I'm not, my avodah, my service, and my education to the Jewish nation is to change things. It might be harder. It might be difficult. It might be small steps. But I believe that as a Jew, you need to, as a human being, and as a Jew especially, you need to transform things. You need to work on the issue. You need to bring some light into this darkness, into this struggle, into this challenge. You need to transform it. And then, even though you're not going to transform it totally, you'll bring some transformation into it. It'll be much better than just throwing things at it. Yaakov Avinu says, pray at night. At night, it's symbolic to choshech, to darkness, to a challenge, to evil. I want you to find goodness in that situation. I want you to find, not only find goodness, but actually to reveal the goodness in the night. I want you to pray at night. So we go to text number 6, 8, I'm sorry, on page 112. We have a statement, he brings down a statement of ethics of our Father. It says, who is mighty? One who conquers his evil inclination. Who is mighty? It's not a person who conquers somebody else. A true mighty person is a person who conquers his own evil inclination. It's much easier to conquer somebody else than to conquer myself. So that's what Yaakov was. Ezo Gibber, Yaakov has been taught Yitzchak. What is Gevura? Gevura is, strength is when I can change myself. I can change my own Yetzer Hara. When I can change my own Yetzer Hara, That's a gibber. That was Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is what Chassidus teaches us, that you need to have some rachamim on yourself. You don't have to have only mercy on somebody else. You need to have mercy on your own. I need to have mercy on myself. I need to have mercy on my own midos, on my own character that needs to change. That needs the challenges that I need to go through. I need to find something within it that can change it, that can bring light in it. So he who is slow to anger is better than the mighty. And he who rules over his spirit is better than the one who takes a city. That is the expression of Pirkei Avos. So the Baal Shem Tov in text number 9, Baal Shem Tov, page 113, it says, Baal Shem Tov says, Baal Shem Tov commented on the Mishnah. It doesn't say break his inclination. It says, who is a strong guy? A person who conquers his inclination. Why didn't it say a person who breaks his inclination? Break yourself. Break yourself. That was the avodah of Musar. The avodah of Musar was break yourself. You're having a problem, break yourself. Tough luck. No, that's not what the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says, the Baal Shem Tov says, the Mishnah says conquer it. Rather, it says conquer it. To break the evil inclination is not a display of real strength. All it takes is to break the evil inclination in common sense, which dictates that a person's evil tendencies ought to be broken. Comes the Baal Shem Tov says, no. If God gave you evil tendencies, then the tendency must be good. You got to figure out a way to conquer it. The idea of conquering is to utilize one's energies and character traits. For there is much more grain. There's much more grain with the power of an ox, namely the animal, within a powerful engine, even greater than the godly soul. Comes Baal Shem Tov, its expression, Rav Koyach, there's much strength in the power of the ox. My animal soul is called an ox. My godly soul is called a spirit. It's not an ox. It's very docile. It's very loving. It's very kind. My animal soul is called a behemoth. It's called an ox. Where is the power? The power is in the ox, the Baal Shem Tov said. Such a person behaves with strength. This is then the Mishnah's dictum. Who is mighty? One who appropriates the force of his evil inclination and uses it for holiness. I shouldn't destroy my evil inclination. I should use it for a positive thing. This is a very big teaching in Chassidus. It's based on the Baal Shem Tov, the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. You don't got to break your evil. You got to learn how to use your evil inclination. Because really your evil inclination is not evil. Like we have a very bad reputation with the Malach HaMavis. But he's a Malach like any other Malach, angel of death. He's a Malach like any other angel. My Yetzer Hara is an inclination like my Yetzer Tov, my good inclination. I just have to use it for midos tovos, to use it out for positive. So desire, for example, could be bad and it could be good. Jealousy can be bad and it could be good. Honor could be bad and could be good. Anything that you think that I or you think is negative is lav dafka negative. It's not always the concept of total negativity. Could be used for a positive way. There's a very famous statement of Zusha Anapala, who said the 7 things he learns from a Ganav. That means that God created the concept of a Ganav in the world. Who created Geneva in the world? Who created the concept of stealing in the world? If there was no concept in the world that God created stealing, there would no be Ganovim. Nobody would steal. The Eibishter created in the world a concept of stealing. human beings with the Yetzer Hara took it and they made it into a physical reality that they steal actually. But the concept of stealing, in its spiritual sense, the midah, the attribute of stealing, we can find some very positive things. Zushana probably said, I learned 7 things from the concept of stealing. Because the concept of stealing is one of the beautiful things of stealing is that you continuously try to do it. If you're a ganef, you continuously try to, because you got to get the thing, so you continuously try. So that concept is there. A person that steals is always in modern. He doesn't proclaim himself. That's when he gets caught. If he can be discreet. So the concept of discretion of stealing is a positive thing. Everything we can find something positive in it. The Gemara says you're born on a Thursday, I think. You have the tendency of murder. And therefore you should become a moil or a sheikhet. Right? We need to eat animals. We need a sheikhet. I don't know. I'm very nervous. I get very squeamish around blood. I would never be able to be a doctor. I would never be able to be a sheikhet. I would never be able to be a moil. Even when I hold the baby for Mila, I start to sweat. I turn white. And I keep my eyes closed. Because I see blood. I feel like I'm going to faint. So, but thank God that there are doctors in the world that can handle that. Right? Thank God. So they take that tendency of seeing blood and they use it out for good to healing people. Imagine if we all didn't have a tendency of seeing blood. Somebody needed to be taken care of, we wouldn't be able to do that. The Eibishter brought the tendency of blood and seeing blood and blood that comes out of a person is that person who has that capability would use it out for a positive thing, and not for a negative thing, but actually something that's positive. It's a very deep concept to take one's negative character and turn it into a positive. There's a very famous story of the Moshe Rabbeinu that I tell the story many times of the king who went to take a picture of Moshe Rabbeinu, heard of Moshe Rabbeinu, so he went he sent a photographer, no photographers in those days, he sent a painter to paint a picture of Moshe Rabbeinu. And every time the painter came back, he was pretty disappointed of Moshe Rabbeinu. He looked like a bitter man. So he came down. The Medrash says he came down to the desert, and he said, "Wow, Moshe Rabbeinu came to visit you. You actually look better than your picture. But why do you look in the picture you look like an officer? You look like a bitter man." And Moshe Rabbeinu said, "You know what? Truthfully, my character is I'm a bitter person. That's my character. I'm a bitter person. But I've learned to take that bitterness and put it to myself and not to others. So I've educated myself. I've educated my character, which I was born bitter, to have a bitter to be a negative person. And I trained it to be on myself and not on others. I have love of others. So I've trained my character. And that's why it says Moshe Rabbeinu lost everything in his life. He gave up everything in his life to serve Jews. He gave up his family life. He gave up everything in his life to serve Am Yisrael. So Yitzchak was bitter, and that's why he said in the picture it comes out that way. In the painting it comes out that I am bitter, because it really is that way. That's why by Chassidim in general they don't like it when you take a picture of them, based on this thing. Because you can see what's on their face, the way their character is. And they don't like their picture being taken. Because they don't want you to know who they really are. So they cover themselves. They don't want the picture taken. You shouldn't know who they really are, because it usually comes out in that way. Okay, that's a whole different picture. So look at text number 6. Look at text number 10. Beautiful text on page 14, the Alter Rebbe again. Some people are naturally drawn to academia. Such people channel all their emotion and passion into it. And they focus all of their intellectual power into it. The very nature from the birth drives a tremendous passion for knowledge. Then there are those who are as much as they understand what they study, they don't particularly have a pleasure in the extent that they should actually really think about it. Rather, they prefer to run after whatever their hearts desires all days. Now, that the person loves to learn, it could be his nature. That the person doesn't have the natural instinct to learn, could be because that's not his nature. David didn't create him that way. Can't judge a person that in that kind of a way. So if I have a love of learning, I should be thank God that I don't have a love of something else. That I don't have a tendency. Some people have a tendency to be addictive. Just because I don't have a tendency to be addictive, I couldn't challenge somebody who does have a tendency to be addictive. That's his challenge. If he has a challenge to be addictive, he needs to learn how to be unaddictive. I cannot per se tell him be unaddictive. It's very easy for me to tell a chas shalom. I've dealt with it many times. People that have addictions, to be able to tell them, oh, overcome your challenge. Oh, don't be addictive. I don't know what that means, because the Eivishter didn't give me that kind of natural instinct to be addictive. And thank God. Maybe I would be maybe if God gave me that challenge, I'd be a worse addict. It's their challenge, and they have to work on learning how to take their addiction and not to just. And that's what people that to overcome their addiction. They'll tell you they have to be on top of it always, because they haven't per se maybe changed that addiction to something else. They left it empty. I was once was called by a parent and told me my daughter is involved in the missionary. This is many years ago. My daughter, you got to get my daughter out of the missionaries. I said, beautiful. He said, well, in one condition, don't give her Judaism. Don't make her religious. Don't give her Yiddishkeit. I said, what do you mean? I should take her out of A and give her nothing? She went to A because she had that yearning of spirituality. So I need to give her something else to train her that there's a Jewish spirituality. You don't got to find spirituality in there. You need to find. So you need to give a person something else. And that's really an education where we need to learn how to work with our challenges in life. Well, as I mentioned before, the Yaakov Vinu's Rachamim, the Alter Rebbe says we need to learn how to have rachmanis on ourselves, to change our issues that we have, not to overpower it, not to break it, not to just say, live with it, or just you go to a person and say, just change, deal with it or change. It's not that easy. A person needs to learn how to not change it, but deal with it and massage it and change it, but not break it. Because usually if you're going to break somebody, he's going to come back to it again. So the Rebbe writes in text number 11, you write that you are besieged with melancholy thoughts. Though I find this somewhat surprising, if it's happening well, you know what is stated in Torah, melancholy can also drive rigorous study, especially Torah study. The Rebbe told this young lady, he says, listen, take your melancholy and use it out for good. Figure out how to use your depression for something good. Maybe it will bring about an awakening within you for something better. Don't diminish your melancholy. Don't break it. Use it out. Figure out how this can inspire you. Siddur teaches us that anger is the worst thing, but anger that brings a person to a frustration. Instead of having anger, have frustration. Frustration will pushes somebody to do something better. Anger is a protective mode. It protects you. So somebody says something, now you're angry. Like somebody says something I don't like, I get angry. No, don't get angry. That's a negative response. Get frustrated. Your frustration will get you to do something, will get you to change something. So now let's come back. The Rebbe comes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's on text number 12 on page 116. The Rebbe just brings it back to the patriarchs. And it says, Abraham and Isaac's service was such that the forces of evil were repelled. When Abraham walked into the room, his kindness pushed everything away. That's it. He was a powerful individual. Nothing was important when he walked into the room. He overpowered the situation so that it would not be an obstruction, but they would be transformed. And therefore, the Rebbe writes on text number 13, Abraham successfully impacted the world, imparting the message that God is the master of the universe. But the impact was only temporary. For his faith was only preserved among the members of Abraham's family. You don't find that Abraham's family continued, that the people that flocked around him continued. The second Abraham died, they disappeared. Isaac created a whole new following because they were Abraham's people. Abraham died. He was not there to keep them going. Isaac created his own group. Jacob was the first one to create tribes of Israel. 12 tribes. Beginning of the Jewish nation is from Jacob. Jacob is the one who creates this tribe, this nation, the Jewish nation. It's not anymore a group of people. It's not anymore a following. It becomes a nation. So the Rebbe says in text 14, this is the way of Abraham and Isaac serve God. By contrast, Jacob's way was to completely transform evil. As such, he couldn't make a peace agreement with Abimelech as he was in the current state of evil. So therefore the Rebbe says, that's the medrash. When Isaac sees, Abimelech's not going to change. The Philistines are not going to change. I am not going to be able to change them. He left. Packed his bags and left. Avraham Avinu overpowered Avimelech. Yitzhak overpowered Avimelech. Yaakov says, I'm not interested in overpowering Avimelech. I'm interested to change Avimelech. I can't change him. I'm leaving. The same things with the Esav, really. Yaakov and Esav, per se, he didn't change the Esav. They parted ways. Because Yaakov, which really was, that was one of Yaakov's, in the Gemara, that's one of Yaakov's, I want to say, faults, or one of the things he didn't accomplish was to change the Esav, which really he should have changed the Esav. And Esav actually wanted to be changed. It says not in this week's portion, next week's portion, that Esav tells Yaakov, let's go together, let's travel together. And Yaakov says, no, you go and I'll go in separate ways, which was a mistake of his. And that was the story with Dinah. He hid Dinah. He should have let Dinah marry him. He would have changed the Esav. But for whatever reason, Yaakov decided he was not ready to do that. And we need to wait for Mashiach to come and to change the Esav. But really, we continue Yaakov's service in changing the Esav is our avodah. Our service is to be the Yaakov, to change the Esav, to change the world. Not to fight with the world, not to overpower the world, but to slowly change the world. And to make this world, to be a light of the world, to make this world a better world. That's our service in the service of Yaakov Avinu. And therefore, I believe we come to the end of the class, the last text, which ends the class on page 15. The future, the Rebbe writes, Page 118, text number 15. The future redemption will come swiftly through the transformation of Jacob-like efforts. As we work throughout this exile to transform the negativity of the world around us, we become worthy of the third temple with the coming of Mashiach. Our sages say that the temple will not be associated with Abraham, who's associated with a mountain, nor with Isaac, who's associated with a field. He called the temple mount a field. Rather with Jacob, who is associated with a house, a permanent structure. Jacob was the first one in general to build houses, physical houses. Abraham lived in a tent. Isaac lived in a tent. Abraham lived in a house. Abraham called in this week's portion the Beis Hamikdash, the Temple Mount, he called it a house. Kiyum zeh Beis Elokim, this is a house. Why? Because Abraham said, Jacob said, I'm not in the service of Abraham, who's a temporary service. I'm not the service of Isaac, who's also a temporary service. I'm the service I'm instituting to the Jewish people a new service. And that's the service of a house. I want to build a house, a permanent place, a place that can hold many different attitudes and many different people. And that's why Abraham had a Yishmael who he had to send away. And Isaac had an Esau who never changed. And Yaakov had 12 sons who, as we are introduced to in this week's parsha already, to many of them, they were different people. They came from different wives. They had different temperaments. They had different attitudes in life. And they had different attitudes even to Yaakov in life. But Yaakov kept them all in one house. And therefore Yaakov was very sad when Yosef was not there. He mourned for 22 years, and he ultimately brought them all together. His last 17 years of life in Mitzrayim, when his whole house came together again, he says that was the best part of my life, when the whole family was again together. And they were all under, so to say, one roof. They were all called the Bnei Yaakov, Bnei Israel. That's the beauty of Yaakov. And the Rebbe said, may we merit the time of world peace speedily. May we merit to that concept, that the Jewish people bring peace to themselves, and they bring peace to the world, because we are the children of Yaakov Avinu. We know how to ultimately transform the world, and not we break the world, not we overpower the world. We are the children of Yaakov who transform the world and make it a better world. But when there's an evil situation, sometimes we have to walk away from it. That's why the Mishnah says, Harchik mishachana, sometimes you have to walk away from evil. So you have to know when to walk away, and you have to know when that you can develop it, change it, and transform it. That's the Sikha of the day of the Rebbe of this Pasha, and introducing us to Yaakov Avinu and his service of the Torah in his service of God. I want to take this opportunity to also invite you to tomorrow night. We're going to have a class in the JLI class, Secrets of the Bible. I'm doing it instead of Thursday night, I'm doing it on Wednesday night at 7:30. And it's actually going to be continued this class, the story of Jacob and Esau. So it's going to be a continuation tomorrow night at 7:30. Even if you don't have a book, you can still be part of the class. I usually do it on Thursday night, but Thursday night is Thanksgiving. I don't want to take you away from your turkeys. So we'll do it on Wednesday night. Tomorrow night at 7:30. Whether you have a book or you don't have a book, you can come to the class, be part of the class in this Zoom number. I wish you all, if I don't see you tomorrow night, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Today in Chitas was the birth of Yehuda. Yehuda is Thanksgiving. We called him Yehuda, and we Jews are called Yehudim, because he called her, Leah called her son Yehuda, because now I can thank God. So we are called Yehudim because we do Thanksgiving every day. We thank God every single day. So we have Thanksgiving every day, but there's nothing wrong to get together on Thursday night and celebrate Thanksgiving and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. May the Eibush see that we are thanking him for all the kindness, and may he bring the world to its ultimate kindness and happiness and joy. I wish you all a good night. Anybody have a question? I'm going to go. Anybody have a question?